Okay, so you know that feeling when you really want to get a grip on something big? You know, like one of those classic books everyone keeps talking about, but you don't want to wade through mountains of heavy analysis.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We're going to make it easy today, diving right into Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, like straight into the deep end.
Sounds good.
It's one of those cornerstones of Gothic literature, and it's still so relevant.
Absolutely.
And we're going to figure out, why this poem still gets under our skin after almost 200 years.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I mean, when The Raven first appeared in 1845, it wasn't just another poem. It was like a huge event.
It really was. And Poe, he was incredibly deliberate about the way he crafted it. He wanted it to work on many different levels. Like, he wanted the literary critics to be impressed,
Right.
But he also wanted to captivate just the everyday reader with this haunting story and this incredible atmosphere he built.
Yeah.
And for anyone, really, if you can understand The Raven, it's like a key to unlocking a lot of what came after in Gothic literature.
Totally. So our deep dive today is all about giving you a clear understanding of this, super famous poem.
Right.
We're going to explore that narrative thread that pulls you in and all the brilliant literary techniques that Poe uses and those core human themes he explores so powerfully.
Okay. Sounds good.
And if you want to have the poem right in front of you as we go, you can find the full text over at poetryfoundation.org.
Great resource.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does this chilling narrative begin for us?
Okay, so picture the scene set on a bleak December midnight.
Okay.
And we're introduced to a scholar. He's not just physically tired, but weary from deep study, surrounded by all these quaint and curious volumes of forgotten lore.
I love that.
Yeah, and if you look closely at the opening lines, you realize he's actually trying to find some kind of solace in these books, a surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore.
Right from the start, that ache of loss, you could just feel it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's palpable.
Lenore, that name just hangs in the air right from the very beginning. He's trying to distract himself, to lose himself in these, old texts.
Right.
But the absence of Lenore, it's like a wound that just won't heal.
Yeah.
And then things start to get unsettling, right?
Yes, and that initial disturbance, it's almost hesitant.
Yeah.
He hears a tapping as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
I love that repetition already. It just creates this feeling of unease.
Exactly, and it's persistent but subtle, this intrusion into his solitude.
Right.
His initial thought is totally rational, 'tis some visitor. Only this and nothing more.
Yeah, just a visitor, no big deal.
Right, but even in that dismissal, don't you think there's a hint of something else?
Yeah, like maybe even a desire for connection.
Yeah, maybe tinged with a little apprehension.
For sure, for sure. That repeated phrase in the first stanza, that rapping at my chamber door.
Yeah.
It's like it sets this rhythm of anxiety almost.
Yes, definitely.
And when he finally opens the door to this mysterious tapping, what does he find looking back at him?
Nothing, just darkness. Darkness there and nothing more. And when you think about the power of that void, it just amplifies the mystery, right?
Totally.
It turns the simple expectation of a visitor into something completely unsettling and unknown.
Right.
And then when he whispers, Lenore, into that darkness, and an echo returns the very name he longs for.
It just plays on that raw vulnerability of grief.
Exactly.
Like that desperate hope against hope.
Yeah.
It's the kind of moment that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Totally.
So he retreats back into his chamber, right, still grappling with this disturbance, and then that tapping sound, it returns.
It does, and it's somewhat louder than before.
Okay.
And his rational mind kicks in again. He tries to explain it away as just the wind hitting the window lattice. 'Tis the wind and nothing more.
Yeah, the wind, that's all.
Right. But, as you're reading this, deep down that the wind isn't really the answer here.
No, definitely not. Because what happens next is one of the most iconic entrances in all of literature.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Paint that picture for us. The arrival of the Raven itself.
Okay, so he throws open the shutter, and with many a flirt and flutter in there, stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore.
Chills.
Yeah, the description is just instantly striking. It's not just any ordinary bird you might see, in your backyard. The word stately, it gives this raven an air of importance, even gravitas,
Sure.
And of the saintly days of yore, it just imbues it with this ancient, almost mythical quality.
Right.
And what's so fascinating is that it completely ignores the narrator.
Yeah.
No greeting, no hesitation. It just perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more.
The visual of that dark, imposing creature just settling in on the bust of Pallas as if it belongs there.
Yeah.
So powerful. And our narrator, being a scholar, he tries to engage with this unusual visitor.
Of course he does. And at first there's almost a sense of his melancholy giving way to this strange amusement.
Really?
Yeah, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, he says at the raven's grave and stern decorum. He even notices its shorn and shaven crest, but declares it sure no craven, this ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore.
Okay.
And then comes that pivotal question, the one that just hangs in the air. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore.
And the response, the one that's echoed through literature ever since.
Quoth the raven, Nevermore.
Just a single word delivered by this unexpected messenger. Shocking in its starkness and, its profound implications.
Absolutely.
It's the complete opposite of what he might have been hoping for, right?
Yeah.
A connection and explanation. But instead, he gets this absolute bleak denial.
Yes.
It completely throws the narrator off, as you can imagine.
Right.
But what's interesting is that he doesn't immediately jump to, supernatural explanation.
He doesn't.
He tries to find a logical reason for this talking bird.
Yeah, he marvels at the raven's ability to speak, calling it plainly delivered.
Okay.
But he acknowledges that it doesn't really make sense. So his scholarly mind, it seeks a source, and he theorizes that the raven must have learned this word from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore.
Wow.
Yeah, he's trying to fit this totally bizarre event into something he understands, like a tragic echo of past suffering,
So he's clinging to the idea that it's just a learned phrase,
Right.
a meaningless repetition.
Yeah.
But as the poem progresses, his questions, they become so much more personal.
They do.
Directly probing, that raw wound of his grief for Lenore.
Exactly. He pulls up a cushioned seat, positions himself right in front of the bird and the bust of Pallas,
Okay.
and he starts to weave connections to link fancy unto fancy, trying to decipher what this ominous nevermore really means.
Okay.
And he starts to project his own anxieties and hopes onto the raven's utterance,
Right.
wondering if it holds some key to his future, a pronouncement on his lost love.
And the questions he asks, they become more and more emotionally charged, right?
They do.
Moving from simple curiosity
Yeah.
to this desperate yearning for some kind of comfort, some glimmer of hope.
Exactly. He wonders if there's any relief from his overwhelming sorrow and asks with such intensity, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore.
That biblical reference to a place of healing,
Yes.
it just emphasizes his deep spiritual and emotional pain.
Yeah.
And the raven's response, of course,
You nevermore.
it's like each repetition of that word is just another hammer blow to his dwindling hope.
Yes. And then he asks the ultimate question, the question of his grief.
Okay.
Will he ever be reunited with Lenore in the afterlife, in that distant Aden,
Aiden.
his term for paradise,
Right.
Will he clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore once more? And again, the answer is the same, completely shattering his dreams of reunion.
At this point, the whole tone of the poem shifts. The narrator's melancholy turns into agitation and finally erupts into outright rage against this, feathered messenger of doom.
Yes. He unleashes his fury, calling the raven a thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil.
Wow.
He demands that it leaves, ordering it to get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. He no longer sees it as a curious visitor, but as this malevolent tormentor,
Right.
a liar who's stolen his last shred of hope.
But even with his pleas and his anger, the raven stays right,
It does.
perched ominously above the door.
Yes.
This constant bleak reminder of his loss and despair.
It leads us to that haunting final image.
Okay.
The raven remains never flitting, still perched on that pallid bust of Pallas.
Yeah.
His eyes are described as having all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight casts this long shadow onto the floor. And the narrator concludes with that devastating line, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted, nevermore.
It's this chilling image of complete and utter eternal despair.
That's
That feeling of being completely trapped, his very soul weighed down by the shadow of this despairing word.
yes.
So we've traced this narrative arc, this descent into grief-fueled madness.
Right.
Now let's look at how Poe masterfully creates this atmosphere and impact. The very structure of the poem is so deliberate, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Raven is constructed in 18 stanzas,
Okay.
and each one follows a very specific pattern. Poe uses trochaic octameter, which means each line is mainly made up of trochees,
Coaches.
a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable.
Okay.
And there are 8 of these rhythmic units per line.
Okay.
And if you think about the sound that creates, it's almost like a heartbeat slowing down.
Yeah.
This heavy, dragging rhythm that mirrors the narrator's sinking mood.
It definitely creates a sense of musicality, even when you're just listening to it. There's an almost hypnotic quality to that consistent rhythm.
Yes, and the rhyme scheme throughout the poem, it reinforces that feeling.
How so?
Well, the rhyme scheme is incredibly consistent, A, A, B, C, C, B within each stanza. But Poe doesn't stop there. He also weaves in a significant amount of internal rhyme.
Internal rhyme.
Where words within the same line also rhyme.
Oh, I see.
This intricate sonic tapestry, it really adds to the poem's memorable quality and its almost incantatory feel.
Okay.
Like a spell being woven, which really enhances that supernatural and unsettling atmosphere.
Yeah, and Poe does something so clever with the length of the lines in each stanza.
Yes, he does.
It's not just the rhyme and meter that create that effect.
You're right. The second, fourth, and fifth lines in each stanza, they're purposely shorter than the first, third, and sixth lines.
Interesting.
And then that final line, always ending with Nevermore. It's the shortest of all. That structural choice, it's not accidental. It throws emphasis onto that final, bleak pronouncement.
Right.
It's like the whole poem is building rhythmically towards that single devastating word each time.
It's almost like a tragic punchline at the end of each stanza, that short, sharp Nevermore landing with such finality.
Yes.
And the repetition of that word itself is obviously central to the poem's impact.
Yep. Absolutely. At first, as we discussed, it's just the surprising response.
Right.
But as the narrator's questions become more desperate, deeply rooted in his grief, Nevermore transcends its literal meaning of no.
I see.
It becomes this potent symbol of absolute finality of hopes being irrevocably crushed.
Right.
It's the unwavering answer that not only denies him solace, but actively pushes him further into a psychological breakdown.
So it's clear that every aspect of the poem's structure and sound is meticulously crafted to amplify the emotional weight of the narrative.
Yes.
Now let's turn to the rich symbolism that Poe layers into the raven. The raven itself is obviously the most prominent symbol.
Right.
What does it represent for you?
The raven is loaded with symbolic meaning. Think about it. Ravens have long been associated with death, bad omens, and the supernatural across so many cultures.
Right.
Like in Norse mythology, Odin had 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin.
Hugin and Munin.
They represented thought and memory.
Interesting.
And in the context of our poem, the raven can be seen as embodying the narrator's own torturous memories of Lenore,
Right. Yeah.
those constant, inescapable reminders of his loss.
Yeah.
It also represents the unknowable future, the bleak certainty that nothing will ever get better, that ultimate nevermore.
That connection to thought and memory is so powerful given the narrator's state of obsessive grief.
Yeah.
How might its depiction of this relentless negativity mirror the ways our own minds can sometimes get caught up in grief and negative thought patterns?
That's a great question.
In what ways can external events or encounters amplify those internal struggles and maybe even lead us down a path of despair?
It's something powerful to consider, for sure.
It is. And if you're interested in exploring this iconic poem even further, we highly encourage you to check out other works by Edgar Allan Poe or look for additional analyses of The Raven itself.
Good idea.
There are always new layers of meaning and insight to be discovered in this truly influential piece of literature.
Definitely.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.